I sold my house in Maryland, wired everything I had. I thought she loved me. Now I'm 66 years old, sleeping on a friend's sofa in Makati with $47 in my bank account. I didn't just lose my money. I lost my dignity, my future, my damn mind. And the worst part? I saw it coming. I just didn't want to believe it. I was sitting across from Gelaine at a beachside cafe in Mactan, watching her laugh at something I'd said. I can't even remember the joke now, but I remember how her eyes lit up, how she touched my arm like I was the only man in the world who could make her feel that way. 3 weeks I'd been in the Philippines. 3 weeks since my divorce finalized back in Maryland. I came here to escape, to breathe, to forget 30 years of a marriage that felt more like a business arrangement than love. My ex-wife Karen and I hadn't touched each other in years, hadn't really talked either. Our kids, Brad and Jessica, they were grown, living their own lives, barely calling. I was just a number on their caller ID, a name that showed up on holidays. So when the papers were signed and the house was split and my half of everything sat in my bank account, I bought a one-way ticket to Cebu. I told myself it was just a vacation, a month to clear my head, but sitting there with Gelaine, watching the sunset paint the ocean orange and pink, I started thinking maybe it could be more. "Max," she said, her voice soft, almost shy. "You said you're here for 1 month only?" I nodded, taking a sip of my San Miguel. "That's the plan, but plans change, right?" She smiled at that. God, that smile. It made me feel like I was 30 again. "I hope you stay longer," she said. "I like talking with you. You're different from other foreigners. You listen. You care." I felt my chest tighten, not from pain but from something I hadn't felt in decades. Hope. "Tell me more about Maryland," she continued, leaning forward. "Is it cold there? Do you have snow?" I laughed. "Yeah, cold as hell in winter. Snow up to your knees sometimes. I spent 30 years working in IT, sitting in an office, staring at computer screens, fixing other people's problems. Never really lived, just existed." "That's sad," she said, and her hand found mine across the table. Her skin was warm, soft. "You deserve to be happy, Max. You deserve to feel alive." And right then, right there, I believed her. I wanted to believe her. Because what was waiting for me back home? An empty apartment? A retirement I hadn't planned for? Kids who saw me as an obligation, at least here, with Gelaine. I felt like I mattered. I met her 2 weeks earlier at a restaurant in Ayala Center. She was a waitress, taking my order with a bright smile and patient English. I was alone, as usual, eating overpriced pasta and watching families and couples around me. She came back to refill my water and asked where I was from. We talked for maybe 5 minutes, nothing deep, just surface-level small talk. But she gave me her Facebook. "Message me if you want to see the real Cebu," she'd said. "Not just the tourist places." I messaged her that night. We met the next day. And every day after, she showed me her city, took me to places I never would have found on my own. Street food stalls, where the lechon was perfect and cost $3. Viewpoints where you could see the whole island stretching out below. Her neighborhood, cramped and loud and alive in a way Maryland never was. She introduced me to her family on our 5th day together. Her mother, Lita, was quiet, polite, with tired eyes and hands rough from work. Her younger brother, Carlo, was maybe 17, skinny, wearing a worn-out Lakers jersey. They lived in a small concrete house with a tin roof and a single fan that barely moved the humid air. Lita served me Coke in a glass with ice and smiled when I said thank you in broken Tagalog. Gelaine translated most of the conversation, but I could feel the warmth, the welcome. These people had nothing, but they offered everything. "So, Max," Gelaine said, that night over dinner at a place near the water, "what will you do when you go back to America?" I chewed slowly, thinking. Honestly, I don't know. My retirement's set up. I get Social Security every month. I've got savings. But I don't have a reason to be there anymore. No wife. My kids are busy with their own lives. It's just me in a one-bedroom apartment, waiting to get old. She looked at me for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she said, "Maybe you don't have to go back." My heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "Cebu is beautiful," she said. "Life is simple here. People are kind. You can live well for not so much money. And you have me." She said it so simply, so honestly, that I felt something crack open inside my chest. "You'd want that?" I asked. "You'd want me to stay?" She reached across the table and took both my hands. "Max, I feel safe with you. I feel happy. I don't want you to leave." And just like that, the decision started forming in my mind. I didn't say it out loud yet, but I knew I was going to stay. The next 2 weeks blurred together. We spent every day together. She took me to a hidden waterfall 2 hours outside the city, where we swam in cold, clear water and ate mangoes on the rocks. She brought me to her cousin's sari-sari store, a tiny shop crammed with soap and instant noodles and phone load cards. Everyone treated me like family. Her Lola, her grandmother, gave me a wooden rosary and blessed me in Cebuano, words I didn't understand but felt in my bones. I started helping without even thinking about it, paid for dinner every night, bought groceries when I saw their fridge was nearly empty, slipped 2,000 pesos to Carlo when Gelaine mentioned he needed books for school. She cried when I did that, actually cried. "Max, you don't have to," she said, wiping her eyes. "I know," I told her, "but I want to. You've given me so much. Let me give back." She hugged me, held me tight, and whispered, "Thank you, thank you." And I felt like a hero. I felt needed. I felt like I had a purpose again. One night, after too many drinks at a bar near her place, we sat on a bench overlooking the city lights. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Max, can I tell you something?" she asked. "Of course. I've never felt this safe with anyone," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "My last boyfriend, he hurt me. He lied. He left me with nothing. I thought I would never trust again. But you're different. You're kind. You're real." I kissed the top of her head, my throat tight. "I'm not going anywhere, Gelaine. I promise." And I meant it. In that moment, I would have done anything for her. When I got back to my hotel that night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled out my laptop and started researching retirement visas, cost of living, condo rentals, healthcare. I had about $180,000 in liquid assets after the divorce, plus Social Security that kicked in at 67, just a few months away. In Maryland, that would last me maybe 15 years if I was careful. In the Philippines, I could live like a king, or at least like a man who didn't have to worry. I ran the numbers over and over. Rent, food, utilities, healthcare, travel. Even if I was generous, I'd spend maybe $2,000 a month. That left me a cushion, a safety net. I could do this. I could actually do this. By the time the sun came up, I'd made my decision. I was going to retire in Cebu. I told Gelaine 2 days later over breakfast. "I'm staying," I said. She looked up from her plate, eyes wide. "What?" "I'm staying. Here, in Cebu. I'm going to get a retirement visa, find a condo, make this my home." She just stared at me for a moment, and then her face broke into the biggest smile I'd ever seen. She jumped up, hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "Max, are you serious? You're really staying?" "I'm really staying." She kissed me, right there in the restaurant, and I didn't care who was watching. I felt alive. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Gelaine helped me with everything. She knew a visa agent, a guy named Benny who handled everything for a fee. We looked at condos together, walking through unit after unit until we found one near the city center. 2 bedrooms, furnished, decent view, $650 a month. I signed a 1-year lease on the spot. She was there when I moved in, helped me unpack, bought dish soap and towels and a new coffee maker because the old one was broken. "This is our home now," she said, looking around the living room. "Our home?" I asked. She bit her lip, suddenly shy. I mean, if you want, I can help you settle in, cook for you, make sure everything is good. I don't have to if you don't want me to. I pulled her close. I want you to. I don't want to be alone. She moved in that night, just like that. She brought 2 bags of clothes and a toothbrush, and suddenly my empty condo felt like a home. I called Brad a week later to tell him the news. He was at work, distracted, but I could hear the skepticism in his voice. Dad, you're moving to the Philippines? Permanently? Yeah, I said, trying to sound confident. I've thought it through. The money works. I've got everything I need here. And this girl, Gelaine, how long have you known her? A few months. Silence on the other end. Then, Dad, be careful. I know you're lonely, but just be smart, okay? Don't do anything stupid. I felt my jaw tighten. I'm not stupid, Brad. I know what I'm doing. All right. I hope you're right. He hung up shortly after, had a meeting or something. I told myself he didn't understand. How could he? He was married, had kids, a stable life. He didn't know what it was like to wake up at 66 and realize you had no one. The first few months were perfect. Gelaine cooked breakfast every morning, took care of the apartment. We explored the islands together, took weekend trips to Bohol and Bantayan. I met more of her family, her cousins, her uncles, her aunts. They always welcomed me with food and laughter. I felt like I belonged. But slowly, little things started to change. Gelaine needed a new phone. Hers was old, the screen was cracked, and she needed it for work, she said. I bought her an iPhone, $800. She cried and thanked me and kissed me like I'd given her the world. A week later, her mother needed money for medication. Hypertension, diabetes, the usual problems. $300. Then Carlo needed school supplies and new shoes. Another $200. Then her cousin needed formula for her baby because the father left and she had no job. $150. I told myself it was fine. I was helping. This was what family did. But then I noticed other things. She was always on her phone, texting in Cebuano, laughing at messages she wouldn't translate. It's just my friends, she'd say when I asked. Girl talk. You wouldn't understand. She started going out more. Nights with her cousins, she said, or her old classmates. She'd come home late, smelling like cigarettes and cheap perfume. We were just singing karaoke, she'd say. It's normal here. Don't worry. I tried not to worry. I tried to trust her. But late at night, lying in bed while she slept beside me, I'd feel this gnawing doubt, this quiet voice saying something wasn't right. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. She was in the shower, her phone sitting on the couch. I picked it up. I knew her passcode. She'd never hidden it from me. I opened her messages, and there it was. Jay, message after message. Miss you, baby. Can't wait to see you again. That old guy still giving you money? I felt my hands start to shake. I scrolled up, flirty messages going back weeks. Pictures I didn't want to see. Plans to meet up. When she came out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around her, I was still holding the phone. She saw my face and froze. Max, what are you doing? Who's Jay? I asked, my voice cold. Her eyes went wide. Then she started crying. Max, please. It's not what you think. Then what is it? He's just a friend. From high school. He messages me sometimes, but I don't. I swear I don't. Max, you have to believe me. She was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. You don't trust me? And just like that, I was the bad guy. I was the one who violated her privacy. I was the one who was controlling and jealous. I tried to explain, tried to show her the messages, but she just kept crying, saying I was breaking her heart, that she couldn't be with someone who didn't trust her. I ended up apologizing. I actually apologized. Told her I was sorry, that I was just scared of losing her. She let me hold her, but she was cold in my arms. Something had shifted. After that night, things got worse. The requests for money increased. Her mother needed surgery. $3,000. Carlo got into a motorcycle accident, broke his arm, needed hospital bills paid. $1,200. Her cousin's roof leaked. They needed repairs. 500. Her aunt's electric got cut off. 200. Every week, it was something new, some emergency that only I could fix. I checked my account one day and saw I was down to $140,000. I'd spent $40,000 in 6 months. I tried to talk to her about it. Gelaine, we need to slow down. I can't keep doing this. She got quiet, distant, stopped sleeping in our bed, started sleeping on the couch. I feel like a burden, she said when I asked what was wrong. Maybe I should just leave, go back to my family. You don't need me here. Panic shot through me. No, I didn't mean it like that. I just need us to be more careful. It's fine, Max, she said, her voice flat. I understand. I'm just a poor girl. You have money. I get it. She packed a bag that night. I begged her to stay, sent her 5,000 pesos just to prove I wasn't abandoning her. She came back, but nothing was the same. The night she didn't come home was the night everything broke. She said she was going out with friends. Some birthday party. She'd be back by midnight. Midnight came and went. I texted her. No response. I called. Straight to voicemail. I stayed up all night, sitting on the couch, staring at the door, my mind racing through every terrible possibility. She walked in at 6 in the morning. Her makeup was smudged. She smelled like cigarettes and cologne. Not her cologne, someone else's. Where were you? I asked, my voice shaking. I told you, birthday party. I fell asleep at my cousin's place. You didn't answer your phone. The battery died. Gelaine, don't lie to me. She exploded, screamed at me that I was controlling, that I was treating her like a prisoner, that she wasn't my slave. You think you can own me because you pay for everything? I'm not your property, Max. I felt my chest tighten, felt the rage and hurt and humiliation swirling together. I never said you were, I said quietly. I just want the truth. The truth? She spat. The truth is I can't breathe here. You watch me all the time. You question me. You don't trust me. Maybe I should leave. Maybe you should find someone else. She walked into the bedroom and slammed the door. I sat on the couch, numb. Something inside me had cracked. I apologized later, because that's what I always did. But this time, I didn't mean it. A few days later, I was at a bar near the water, trying to drink away the knot in my stomach. Klaus, a German expat I'd met a few times, sat down next to me. He was in his 50s, been in Cebu for a decade, spoke Cebuano better than most locals. He ordered a beer and looked at me for a long moment. You okay, Max? He asked. You look like hell. I shrugged. Just tired. He nodded, took a sip. Then he said, I saw your girl the other night, with a guy, young guy. They were holding hands. The world stopped. What? Saw them at a restaurant in Mandaue. They looked pretty comfortable together. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline, but he just looked back at me, his expression serious. I'm sorry, man. I thought you should know. I finished my drink in one gulp. Thanks for telling me. I left the bar and walked for hours, my mind screaming. I wanted to confront her, wanted to scream and demand the truth, but I was terrified, because if I confronted her and she admitted it, then it was real, and if it was real, then I had to accept that I'd been played, that everything was a lie. I stopped sleeping. I'd lie in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling, doing math in my head. $60,000. I'd spent $60,000 in 8 months. My savings were down to $100,000. I'd sold my house in Maryland, the house where I raised Brad and Jessica, the house where I'd lived for 25 years. Sold it so I'd have liquidity for retirement, so I could be comfortable. And now I was living in a rented condo with a woman who was probably cheating on me. I thought about calling Brad, but I couldn't. What would I even say? You were right, son. I was stupid. I let a pretty girl convince me I mattered, and now I've lost everything. I couldn't say that. I couldn't admit I'd failed that badly. One night, Gelaine came home late again and sat down on the couch next to me. She was in a good mood, scrolling through her phone, laughing at something. "Max," she said casually, not even looking up, "my cousin wants to start a small business, a sari-sari store. She needs $5,000 for inventory and setup. Can you help?" I stared at her. $5,000? Yeah, it's a good investment. She'll pay you back. Gelaine, I can't keep doing this. She looked at me, her expression unreadable. What do you mean? I mean, I've given your family over $60,000. I can't afford to keep doing this. She set her phone down slowly. So you're saying no? I'm saying I need to be more careful. She stood up, grabbed her purse. Okay. Okay? Yeah. Okay. I understand. And then she walked out. Just like that. No argument. No tears. No explanation. She just left. I sat there in the dark, alone, and realized I wasn't losing money. I was losing myself. She didn't come back that night. Or the next. I called her. She didn't answer. I messaged her. Nothing. I reached out to Lita, asked if she knew where Gelaine was. "She's staying with family," Lita said, her voice cold. "She needs space." A week later, Klaus told me he saw her with the same guy again. This time at the mall, buying clothes, laughing. She'd moved on, just like that. One day I came home and realized she'd taken things. The TV, the laptop I bought her, the rice cooker, the blender. Small things, but things I'd paid for. She left no note, no explanation. I tried calling one more time. Blocked. I felt hollow. Not angry anymore, just empty. The lease on the condo was up 2 months later. I didn't renew it. I couldn't afford it. I moved into Klaus's spare room for a few weeks, sleeping on a mattress on the floor, feeling like a charity case. Then I bounced between a few other expats' places, a couch here, a pull-out bed there. Everyone was kind, but I could see the pity in their eyes. I checked my bank account. $47,000. At 66 years old, I was basically homeless in a foreign country. I was too embarrassed to go back to Maryland, too broke to start over. I sat in a coffee shop one afternoon, scrolling through old photos of Gelaine on my phone. Her smile, her laugh, the way she looked at me like I was everything. I wondered if any of it was real, or if I was just a mark from the beginning. A lonely old man with money and no one to tell him no. Klaus found me there, sat down across from me without asking. "You look like you're drowning, Max." "I am." "She's already with someone new," he said gently. "Younger guy, mid-40s, owns a bar near the port. Saw them together last night." I nodded. I already knew. "You gonna go back to the States?" he asked. I shrugged. "And do what? Admit I screwed up? Face my kids? I can't." "So you're staying?" "I don't have a choice." I spent the next few months in survival mode. I picked up freelance IT work online, small gigs, fixing websites, troubleshooting networks for American companies who didn't care where I was as long as the work got done. I made enough to rent a tiny studio in a rough part of Manila, $200 a month, no air conditioning, thin walls, roosters waking me up at 4 a.m, but it was mine. I stopped going to expat bars, stopped looking for connection. I learned to cook adobo from my neighbor, an old woman named Aling Rosa who felt sorry for me. I started jogging in the mornings, trying to outrun the shame, trying to rebuild some sense of self. One day, I was in a mall in Quezon City, buying groceries, and I saw her, Gelaine. She was with him, the new guy. He was tall, tan, confident. She was laughing at something he said, holding his hand. She saw me. For just a second, our eyes met. I waited for something, an apology, guilt, anything, but she just looked away and kept walking, and I did the same. I kept walking, and for the first time in a year, I didn't feel anything. Not love, not hate, not even anger, just the quiet weight of survival. That night, I opened my laptop and started writing. Not for revenge, not for closure, just to remember, to make sense of what happened, to warn someone else who might be where I was a year ago. Someone lonely, someone desperate to feel loved, someone who thinks money can buy connection. I wrote about the cafe by the beach, about her smile, about the moment I decided to stay, about the red flags I ignored, about the night she didn't come home, about Klaus's warning, about the final walk out, about sleeping on sofas and checking my bank account and realizing I'd lost everything. I wrote it all down, every word, every mistake, because maybe, just maybe, someone would read it and make a different choice. Or maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they'd do exactly what I did. Fall for the wrong person. Ignore the signs. Pay the price. But at least they'd know they weren't alone. At least they'd know someone else had been there. Someone else had survived. I'm still here, in the Philippines. Not because I want to be, but because I have nowhere else to go. I rebuilt, slowly. My bank account is back up to 60,000. Not much, but enough to breathe. I work, I pay rent, I cook my own meals. I don't look for love anymore. I don't trust easily. I see Gelaine sometimes, in my mind. I hear her laugh. I remember how it felt when she took my hand. But I don't miss her. Not really. I miss who I thought she was. I miss who I thought I could be with her. I was never going to save her. She was never going to love me. We were both just playing roles. She played the girl who needed saving. I played the hero. And when the script ran out, so did we. Maybe I'm bitter. Maybe I'm broken. But I'm still here, still standing, still trying to figure out what the hell comes next. And some nights, when the city is quiet and the jeepneys stop running and the roosters haven't started yet, I sit at my desk and write. I write my story, not because it has a happy ending, but because it's mine, and maybe that's enough.